meeting. So first agenda item is the appointment of chairperson. I'm Councillor Steve Hunt, leader of Neath Talbot Council, and I will be chairing today's meeting. Agenda item 2 is chair's announcements. So can I welcome members of the public or press who might be viewing this meeting this afternoon? Can I ask you to please ensure that your microphones are switched off? You are here to observe the meeting only. Members and officers, please ensure that your phones are switched to silent for the duration of the meeting and that your microphones are switched to mute unless you are speaking. In addition, when asked to raise your hand, if members who are virtually attending the meeting could raise your electronic hands, and for members physically present, just raise your hand here in the chamber. Officers, please ensure to verbally add any additional comments. Hang on, it was mine, it was. Right. Sorry about that. I had feedback on my own iPad. Apologies. Officers, please ensure to verbally add any additional comments from scrutiny committees if this has not already been included within your reports. And please note there is a slight discrepancy between the page numbers printed on the agenda front sheets and the numbers at the bottom of each page. I will be reading out the page numbers printed on the agenda front sheet, just to be clear. So if I move on to agenda item 3, which are declarations of interest, can I just ask members if they have any declarations of interest? Please would members say what the items are and what the interest is, please.
See no hands, Leader.
Okay, I've gone to members first. I have an agenda item to declare, and that's agenda item 8, which is the Community Council's minor projects scheme for Seven Sisters. I will leave the meeting, and Councillor Alan Llewellyn will take that agenda item this afternoon. Thank you. Agenda item 4. The forward work programme is on pages 5 to 8 and is here for noting. And agenda item 5 is the public question time. I have received no notifications from the public to speak at today's meeting. Moving on to agenda item 6, which is the third sector grant funding award of grants 2025 to 2026. The report is on pages 9 to 52 and is here for a decision. And I will now ask Noel and Daniel to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Leader. So you have in front of you the report that spells out exactly the process undertaken to assess the 70 applications that came in for the third sector grant. It was a robust and transparent process, a process that was agreed by Cabinet back in December, which we implemented, and the outcomes of the awards are there for members to decide upon today. Diolch, Chair.
Thank you, Noel. Can I ask members if they have any questions on this agenda item, please? I don't see any in the room, and I see no hands up online. The decision is proposed for immediate implementation. So now I would like to ask for the support of the Scrutiny Chair, Phil Rogers. Phil?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've read the report thoroughly, and I'm fully supportive of the recommendation.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you, Phil.
Diolch.
I now refer members to the recommendation on page 12 of your agenda pack. I will propose this agenda item. Can I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second.
Thank you, Alan. Any abstentions? I don't see any. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I will assume that you're in favour of the recommendations.
I see no indications to the contrary, Chair, so those recommendations have been approved.
Thank you very much, Tammy. Agenda item 7 is the Neath Talbot Youth Justice and Early Intervention Youth Justice Plan for 2024-2025. The report is on pages 53 to 128. The main report starts on page 121 of your pack and is here for a decision. And now ask Andrew Jarrett, would he like to introduce this report, please, Andrew?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So, as you said, before you today, members, is the Neath Talbot Youth Justice and Early Intervention Youth Justice Plan for 2024-25. It sets out to review the performance and developments of the service over the last year and to highlight the plan for the forthcoming year. As the chair of the Youth Justice Board in this area, I'm pleased to commend this to Cabinet. It's been to scrutiny on the 13th of March and was commended here as well. And the recommendation, Chair, is for it to be commended to full council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Can I ask members if they have any questions or comments on this agenda item, please? I don't see any. I now refer members to the recommendations on page 124 of your agenda pack. I'll propose the agenda item. Can I have a seconder, please?
Happy to see Eilio Cadeirydd. Pleased to second.
Thank you, Alan. Any abstentions from members? Don't see any. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I will assume that you're in favour of the recommendations.
Yes, no indications to the contrary, Leader. So the Youth Justice Plan has been commended to Council.
Thank you, Tammy. Agenda item 8 is the agenda item I've declared interest on. I will now leave and hand over to Councillor Llewellyn to take this agenda item. Thank you.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr iawn. Agenda item 8, Community Council's Minor Project Scheme, application from Sem Sisters Community Council. The report is on pages 129 to 132 and is here for decision. Mr Hugh Jones, would you like to introduce the report?
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Diolch. Yes, so as you say, this is an application from Sem Sisters Community Council for a grant under the Minor Project Scheme. They've asked for a grant of £12,000 towards a project of £20,000, which fits within the criteria of the scheme. So I'm happy to recommend to Cabinet, Deputy Leader. Thank you. Diolch.
Diolch yn fawr, Hugh. Do members have any questions or comments on the item? I don't see any. I now refer members to the recommendations on page 130 of the agenda pack. Yes, we need to make the decision first before I call him back in. Yes. So I propose if we could have a seconder, please.
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, Wyndham. Any abstentions? I don't see any. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I will assume that you are in favour of the recommendations, and Tammy will confirm the outcome.
Yes, no indications to the contrary, Deputy Leader. So that item has been approved.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much. The leader can now return.
Okay, then, thank you very much. If I move on to agenda item 9, which is the environmental health, empty, non-residential and commercial property enforcement. This report is on page 133 to 146 and is here for a decision. And I will ask Kerry Morris, would he like to introduce this report, please, Kerry?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, this report seeks ultimately a cabinet decision on the level of service provision going forward to deal with empty, sort of problematic non-residential commercial properties. Members will undoubtedly be aware that of the various challenges facing the Environmental Health Service at this point in time, and particularly the fact that the service doesn't have the resources or capacity to utilise all of its delegated discretionary powers. As a consequence, officers are faced with difficult decisions each day in terms of which areas of work they prioritise, and invariably that leads to the statutory work. So what this report initially does, Leader, is just provide a brief overview of some of the challenges that the Environmental Health Service deal with in terms of the increasing demands. In respect of the empty properties, unlike the residential empty properties, there is currently very little proactive engagement ongoing at this current time. Appendix 2 to the report does give members some examples of some of those problematic properties that we have scattered across our communities in Neath Talbot. The list isn't definitive. There are a number out there, but this is based on current officer knowledge on some of the queries that the service has received. So the report, Leader, provides two options for Cabinet to consider. The first is just to remain status quo and continue as currently ongoing, and the second is to look to enhance the service with the creation of 2 additional posts. Probably worth highlighting that the funding has been identified within the recently agreed revenue budget to cover the costs of enhancing the service. But ultimately, we require a member decision today. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you for that report, Kerry. Can I go now to members for any questions or comments? Councillor Ken Phillips, please.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, the issue of empty commercial properties, they can blight communities and town centres, their visual impact, their capacity for attracting antisocial behaviour, and they can cause a number of problems. This isn't something that's been addressed over the years by this council. I was very pleased during the budget discussions that we were able to allocate a budget to this. It will obviously take many years to work through all of the empty commercial buildings we have to address all of those situations. But I think it's really important that we do select option B today to move forward with this, so that we can begin to address these buildings that are blighting our communities across Neath Talbot. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Ken. Councillor Llewellyn, please.
Yeah, diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Thank you, Chair. I mean, Cabinet members and officers will have heard me raise on many occasions the problems of derelict and empty commercial properties and the associated environmental and antisocial behaviour problems that are linked to them. Not just in the area that I represent as a member, but all across the county borough. Many examples which are included in the appendix. So I think that this is a positive step forward for us to begin the process of tackling these buildings, which will help to enhance our communities and also tie in very importantly with our broader regeneration strategies in towns, valleys and villages. The 2 choices before us today are effectively to do nothing or to take this step forward that's included in the report. I don't think that doing nothing is an option. So when the time is right, I'll be pleased to support option B. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alan. Any other member got any comments? Ken, would I come back?
Apologies, Leader. Somewhat remiss of me. I neglected to thank the officers, Kerry and Kelvin in particular, and all the officers involved for putting this report together and giving us the details of the option to move forward with this. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Ken. I don't see any other comments. I was about to do that as well. I think it's important to recognise with the resources we have how difficult the work that they've embarked on to get to where we are today, and also recognising what Alan and yourself have said. This is the start of a journey that is very much needed. So thank you both for those comments. As there are no other further comments from Cabinet members, so I'm now going to propose that we go with recommendation option B. Can I have a seconder for that recommendation, please?
I'm happy to second that, Chair.
Thank you, Alan. So now I want to see if there's any abstentions for that decision. I don't see any. So members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I will assume that you're in favour of the recommendations.
Yes, no indications to the contrary, Leader, so option B has been approved.
Yeah, thanks, Tammy. Agenda item 10 is the trading standards legislation changes to the officer delegation arrangements. The report is on pages 147 to 156 and is here for a decision. I'm going to go back to Kerry Morris to introduce this report, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, very quickly from me. This is more of a procedural report than anything else. It seeks approval to amend and update the Council's current delegation arrangements in regard to legislation enforced by the Trading Standards Service. We need to add the Digital Markets Competition and Consumers Act 2024 to the list, and Trading Standards Service has a duty to enforce parts 3 and 4, which relate to consumer protection law, consumer rights. So the legislation comes into force on the 6th of April, so we need to update our constitution and arrangements accordingly. So we're seeking approval for that to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Kerry. Can I see if the members got any questions on this report? Don't see any. I now refer members to the recommendations on page 149 of your agenda pack. I'll propose the agenda item. Can I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, Alan. Any abstentions from members? Don't see any again. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I will assume that you're in favour of the recommendations.
Yes, no indications to the contrary, Leader, so those recommendations have been approved.
Thank you again, Tammy. Agenda item 11 is the use of containers on small vehicle black bag waste collection rounds. This report is on pages 157 to 178 and is here for a decision. I've now you taken it instead of Michael Roberts. Okay. Nicola will be taking this report, so I'll ask her to introduce it. Nicola, please.
Thank you, Leader. This policy relates to parts of the county borough where there are narrow highways and lanes and we can't get our large vehicles with the lifting gear to access those areas. So it's a policy that we've been implementing informally for a number of years, but there is now that we are now formalising that policy to ensure that the principles are well described to all those areas affected, and we are ensuring that we are providing a waste service in areas which are difficult to service, and we're also ensuring that the policy and all the criteria within that policy are properly communicated to those residents. There's approximately 3,000 properties affected. Our communication plan will ensure we will write to every one of those properties, and we've also developed an FAQs page for our website which identifies the answers to all the questions which no doubt members of the public will be seeking clarification on. I'm happy to take any questions, Leader.
Thank you very much, Nicola. Can I ask members if they have any questions on this report? I don't see any. Don't see any online either. Okay, I now refer members to the recommendations on page 158 and 159 of your agenda pack. I'll propose this agenda item. Can I have a seconder, please?
Hapus i eilio, Cadeirydd, pleased to second.
Thank you, Alan. Any abstentions from members? No, I don't see any. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I will assume that you're in favour of the recommendations.
Again, no indications to the contrary, Leader, so those recommendations have been approved.
Thank you again, Tammy. Agenda item 12 is the proposal to reinstate to the means test for small and medium disabled facilities grant applications. This report is on pages 179 to 232 and is here for a decision. And I'll go to Andrew Jarrett to introduce this report, please, Andrew.
Okay, thanks, Leader. I think in these times of financial pressures, it is really important that what we do as a council is we concentrate on supporting those who are the most vulnerable and least able to pay for services. And so this is what this report is all about. With your indulgence, Chair, I'll hand over to Rob Davis, who knows all things about DFGs, who will introduce the report further.
Thank you, Andrew. Rob, if you would like to come in.
Yes, thank you very much. This paper gives feedback and comments of the means test consultation for the DFGs carried out following the main paper we brought back in October to reinstate the means test for small and medium-sized works. As stated in the paper, since we removed the means test on the Welsh Government's request in August 2022, the demand has increased considerably. By reintroducing the means test, it makes sure that the people who don't have the financial means will now get the help they need. Our proposals are to reintroduce the means test for small and medium-sized grants from the 1st of April. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rob. Members, have you any questions? Councillor Llewellyn, please.
Just to very briefly mention that, you know, I know a great deal of work has gone behind this report, and a lot of consideration has been given to it at different stages, and it's been very, very thoroughly scrutinised and supported by scrutiny. And I think it's, you know, as both Rob and Andrew, the director, emphasised, it's to ensure that we make the best possible use of the resources that we have available to assist those that are in need. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. Any other member got any questions? No. I now refer members to the recommendations starting on page 188 of your agenda pack. I will propose this agenda item. Can I have a seconder, please?
Happy to see you look at it.
Thank you, Alan. Any abstentions? Don't see any. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I will assume that you're in favour of the recommendations.
No indications to the contrary, Leader. Those recommendations have been approved.
Thank you, Tammy. Agenda item 13 is the library strategy, which is for 2025 to 2030. The report is on pages 233 to 268 and is here for a decision. I now go over to Chris Saunders, who will introduce this report. Chris, please.
Thank you, Leader. As you say, we're really delighted to be able to present the new library strategy, hopefully for adoption this afternoon. It is a strategy that's required by as part of the Welsh Public Library Standards, so it's part of our statutory obligations. As members will be well aware, library service, you know, performs really well every year and constantly gets a really high rating actually within the annual Welsh Public Library Standards assessment. And we've been really keen to make sure that this strategy really reflects what a sort of modern library service can do. So much more than just a sort of book lending service, but very much more sort of that vital part of the everyday sort of social fabric of our local communities. So things like providing training, skills, opportunities, warm spaces, IT hubs, and sort of that sort of wider social functions. Pleased to say this went through to scrutiny a couple of weeks ago and was supported unanimously by scrutiny.
Thank you very much for that report, Chris. Can I see if members got any questions? Councillor Phillips, please.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, just very little to add to what Chris has said, other than to thank Chris and Claire and the library team for preparing this strategy. Our libraries are such an important resource in our communities, and this strategy recognises that and sets a way forward to keep them serving our communities in so many different ways. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Ken. I'm sure we all echo those comments. It's important to have a library strategy as well for the reasons you've given. So any further questions, observations from members? Don't see any. Okay, I now refer members to the recommendations on page 234 of your agenda pack. I'll propose it. Can I have a seconder, please?
Happy to say hello, please to second.
Thank you, Alan. Any abstentions from members? I don't see any. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I will assume that you're in favour of the recommendations.
No indications to the contrary, Leader, so the library strategy has been approved.
Oh, dear. Thank you, Tammy. Agenda item 14 is the admission arrangements to community schools 2026 to 2027. The report is on pages 269 to 296 and is here for a decision. I now ask John Burge if he would like to introduce this report, please. Or Helen, is John available?
I'm sorry.
John?
Go on, Andrew. Go on, John. Thank you. Sorry, as you were saying, would John Bird like to introduce the report? My broadband went and it was desperately trying to get back in. I'm sorry, but I'm here now. Thank you. Yeah, the report that you have in front of you is the results of the consultation exercise that we've undertaken recently regarding the admissions to schools policy for 26-27. The document remains exactly as you saw previously when we sought your permission to go into consultation. Helen, in fairness, she consulted our schools and our usual neighbours and the faith sector, and we had no responses whatsoever. Therefore, the document in front of you today remains exactly as it is, and we're here to seek your permission to agree the admissions policy for 26-27. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, John. Your members, do you have any questions on this agenda item? Don't see any. I now refer members to the recommendations on page 271 of your agenda pack. I'll propose the agenda item. Can I have a seconder, please?
Hapus i eilo.
Thank you, Alan. Any abstentions? I don't see any. So, members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I will assume that you're in favour of the recommendations.
Yes, no indications to the contrary, Leader, so those recommendations have been approved.
Thank you again, Pammy. Agenda item 15 are urgent items. I have received one urgent item which will be dealt with during private session. So agenda item 16 is access to meetings. So the access to meetings report is on pages 297 to 302 of your report packs. So now I will resolve to exclude the public for the following items in pursuit of regulations 4 in brackets 3 and 5 of the Statutory Instrument 2001 number 2290 and the relevant paragraphs of Part 4 of your Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972. I will propose that we now move into private session. Could I have a seconder, please?
Hapus i eilo, Cadeirydd.
Thank you, Alan. Are there any abstentions? Don't see any. So, members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I will assume that you're in favour of moving into private session.
Yeah, just checking that all public have left. Bear with.